75 abducted students of Government Day Secondary School, Kaya, Zamfara State, to regain freedom.
Presidency clears the air on misinterpretation of President Buhari's remarks in Imo.
Pictures of mass graves on social media have no link with counter-insurgency operations, says Defense Headquarters.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the challenges of pension management in Nigeria.
Well, someone once said the best time to start thinking about your retirement is before the boss does. That means the plans of others for your retirement should at best complement your own personal plan, Kinsley.
That's very thought-provoking, Kieran, and indeed very true. Apparently, there are things your pension may not be able to achieve for you once you're in retirement, such as building a house, especially at a time like this when inflation is, of course, devaluing the amount of money that you may have in your pocket. Therefore, preparation for retirement is key and cannot be wished away.
So true, Kinsley, and from what we know, it would appear easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than for workers in the public service to access their retirement benefits such as gratuity, annuity, and pension. Many of them become fragile and sick while waiting for retirement benefits and have to queue up for one verification exercise after the other. And some even die in the process, leaving the struggle for the next of kin, which will not be easy for such next of kin, when the real person couldn't access it. Then, of course, the next of kin will have more difficulty accessing it.
That's quite a pathetic ordeal for senior citizens and their loved ones. Now, even as government struggles to pay the backlog of pension arrears and gratuity of retirees, a lot of private organizations appear to have no sustainable pension arrangement to cater for their employees when they leave active service. This is a huge dilemma for the aged population in Nigeria. A lot of them manage health conditions usually associated with aging, and in the process have huge medical bills to pay.
Now, the huge financial liabilities that told the initial pay-as-you-go pension scheme necessitated the enactment of the Pension Reform Act of 2004 as amended, which gave birth to the Contributory Pension Scheme. 17 years after, only 8 states in the Federation are fully implementing the Contributory Pension Scheme for their workers.
There are indeed various degrees of breaches or non-compliance with the provisions of the Pension Reform Act 2004 as amended, which stipulated the percentage contribution by the employer in relation to an employee's monthly emoluments and, of course, the contribution from the employee as well. But some states, we understand, have not been contributing the mandatory percentage to their workers' retirement savings accounts, while others have been deducting the required percentage from their workers' emoluments but not remitting same to the retirement savings accounts of the employee.
Also, the failure of the federal government and some state governments to transfer the accrued benefits of government workers to PENCOM for honor transfer to various pension fund administrators have led to years of delay to immediately pay workers their lump sum benefits after retirement.
Now, whereas the contributory pension scheme has recorded phenomenal surplus over the years, posting at some point an all-time high of over 12 trillion naira, as against 2.56 trillion naira pension deficit before the reform in 2004. And Kieran, poor awareness about the benefits of the contributory pension scheme seems to be another huge challenge for workers. Now, many workers require knowledge of how to compute their own retirement benefits, not to mention accessing such benefits after retirement.
So why is this so difficult? and challenging for retirees in public service to access their gratuity and pension as at when due. What should be the status of a typical public servant as at the time of retirement? What can be done to improve the contributory pension scheme and pension management in Nigeria?
Very pertinent questions you have raised there, Kieran, but we have to elaborate on that and say that the challenges that we are talking about today relate to not just public sector retirees, but also contributors who have retired from the private sector. Because once you hit age 55, you can access it, or once you hit age 60 from the private sector, you can also access it. But a number of contributors have been complaining of delays from their pension fund administrators. So these are issues, of course, we shall be taking a look at in our conversation segment today on Good Morning Nigeria. I welcome you to the program. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. We are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. Welcome to the program. As usual, we'll bring you some of our complementary segments in the course of the program. And for now, let's join Nolene Ebrel Ame with the Good Morning News. Hello, Nolene.
Hi, Kirian and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. The 75 students of Government Day Secondary School Kaya in Maradu local government area of Zamfara State, abducted about 2 weeks ago, have eventually regained freedom. The students and their 3 teachers were safely rescued and brought to Zamfara State Government House. Governor Bello Muhammad, who received the kidnapped victims, said their rescue followed concerted efforts by security operatives and the State Task Force Committee on Security. The governor emphasized that the shutdown of telecommunication services in the state paved way for the successful operation which led to the rescue victims unhurt. Still on security matters, the Katsina State Police Command has arrested a fugitive bandit who has been on its wanted list while trying to escape from the state. Dauda Mohammed reports that other suspected informants and suppliers of fuel to bandits were also arrested.
Despite the order made by the state government against taking of fuels, not only in drums, but even in jerry cans, and prohibiting even the selling of fuel in jerry cans.
Meanwhile, the Olu sector commander of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Chidera Nabuye, also known as Dragon, has been killed in a gun battle with officers of the Imo State Police Command. A statement signed by the police public relations officer, Michael Abatum, indicates that the incident occurred when officers of the command tactical team, acting on intelligence report, raided major IPOB ESN camps in the state. Items recovered from their hideout include 2 locally fabricated general-purpose machine gun and 16 improvised explosive devices. The presidency has described as worrisome and mischievous attempts by some individuals to discredit the highly successful visit by President Muhammadu Buhari to Imo State by concocting and indeed twisting out of context his remarks at the meeting with Igbo leaders. In a statement, a special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, says the purveyors of disinformation want Nigerians to believe that the president bluntly told Governor Uzodinma that he will be careful with his future invitations, which is total contrast to the context wherein the president spoke during his successful dialogue with leaders of thought from Igbo land. He says an elated President Buhari made it clear that he was expressly overwhelmed by the reception and galaxy of personalities that traveled from the 5 southeastern states to have a heart-to-heart discussion with him in Owerri, the Imo State capital. The Defense Headquarters has reacted to a trending picture with a caption, "Alhamdulillah, Zamfara must secure," and several other gory pictures and videos of mass grave of persons allegedly killed in the military operations in the northwest and north-central zones of the country. A statement by the Director Defense Information, Major General Benjamin Sawyer, states that the allegation is false and has no link with the operations being conducted by troops of the armed forces of Nigeria. He urged the public to disregard the gory pictures. And talking health now, 365 new cases of COVID-19 and 8 deaths from the virus have been recorded in the country within the last 24 hours. This brings Nigeria's COVID-19 caseload to 199,151. NCDC statistics indicates that Lagos has 209 of the new cases, followed by Ondo with 88, FCT 31, Rivers 16, Ebonyi 11, Kaduna 6, Ekiti 3, while Plateau recorded 1 case. 186,418 treated cases have been discharged, while the death toll is now 2,598. That's the morning news for now. The program continues with Kingsley and Kurian after this break. I am Nolin Ebel Ame. Good morning.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing type based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 34 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
He's falling sick so frequently, either fever or stomachache. I keep him away from junk food.
She also feeds me apples. She says an apple a day.
If you want to keep germs away, then also wash your hands regularly with Dettol soap.
Meaning?
Germs and disease spread through the hand also. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Filled with lots of fun and excitement. Stay safe, stay healthy. Indomie noodles, tasty nutrition, good for you.
We are StarTimes, the most affordable digital pay TV platform with the widest signal coverage in Nigeria, dedicated to bringing the best TV entertainment around the world to your screen. From Hollywood to Bollywood to Nollywood, we offer the most affordable subscription. Enjoy over 75 channels for as low as 1,700 naira, like Nat Geo Wild, BBC, ESPN, and premium sport like Emirates FA Cup, La Liga, Bundesliga, wrestling. What's more exciting? We have the most flexible payment options in Nigeria. Don't dull. Join us now for an exciting journey. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feed. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
You're still tuned to Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Next for us is business news with Comfort Amodu.
Sesame tops the list of agro-export commodities with a probable export value of 41.9 billion naira, while cashew nuts valued at 13.7 billion naira. The report by the Federation of Agricultural Commodity Association of Nigeria, FACN, indicates that Nigerians' agricultural exports stood at 127 billion naira in the first quarter of the year 2021. The figure, according to the organization, represents a 128% increase compared to the 55.8 billion naira in first quarter of 2020. The report also posits that the global demand for the commodity is expected to grow at 4.2% compound annual growth rate by 2024. This week, oil prices are likely to gain slightly as the US Gulf of Mexico production comes on stream and President Biden's vaccine mandate strengthens economic recovery. Oil prices may also be supported by the Chinese oil auction, which was aimed at stabilizing oil prices. Also, the oil market in the week will be looking out for OPEC and international energy agencies' oil demand outlook for 2022 against the spread or control of the Delta variant of COVID-19. With Business News, Comfort Amodu.
Comfort Amodu with a business news package. Now, the next on Good Morning Nigeria this morning is newspaper review.
Baya TV is with us in the studios. Baya, good morning and welcome. I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning.
Baya, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, we
All
have.
right. Okay, let's start with the leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper. Vandalism, absence of runway lights threaten safety at airports. That's on page 4. The big story on the leadership newspaper this morning. The troops on red alert in Kaduna, Katsina, Niger, and as bandits flee Zamfara. So page 4. It has 3 riders. Kill 40 bandits. Vow to sustain onslaught against terrorists. Military disowns gory pictures on Zamfara operations. 31 Bethel students still in captivity 68 days after, as according to CAN, Christian Association of Nigeria. PMB's quote in Imo deliberately concocted, says the presidency, as on page 12. Enugu APC expels ex-governor, former speaker, 39 others. As on page 6, police kill IPOP commander, 2 others in Imo. It's also on page 6. Unilag Governing Council can remove Vice Chancellor, that's according to panel. Unilag, as a kicker, Governing Council can remove Vice Chancellor, according to the panel, that's on page 6. Alleged false assets declaration. CJN orders sanctions against judge overruling on Soludo. CJN orders sanctions against judge overruling on Soludo. Stories on page 9. El-Rufai condemns murder of pastor by gunmen. It's on page 17. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. Let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. Immediately below the name flag, you have the continuing strip as a reminder of school children in captivity. Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama in Kaduna. Daily Trust is reporting 71 days in captivity rather than 68 as indicated by CAN. Federal Government College, Birni Yauri, 89 days. Now, row over airport concession depots as NSA summons aviation unions. Forex, YCBN must consult with BDC operators. That's according to APCON, that's the Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. Sit-at-home order, IPOB inflicting more injuries on Igbo people. That's according to Namani. How police extort victims before tracking kidnappers and thieves. How police extort victims before tracking kidnappers and thieves. 4 riders to that headline. We rely on private firms for tracking. We pay through the nose to track suspects. That's according to victims. That will be victims' families, I believe. Why it's difficult to track kidnappers and carjackers via GPS technology, according to experts. And report erring officers involved to us, says the police. Terrorism sponsors, court fixes September 17 for arraignment of 400 suspects. Kaduna poll, APC PDP protest as electoral body declares 4 local governments inconclusive. Unilag crisis festers as panel uncovers 3 billion naira tax fraud and contract splitting. Aviation, federal government approves new handling rates 35 years after. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the story about the police high command. The police high command has denied allegations that its personnel extort victims before accepting to track kidnappers and thieves. Daily Trust has published that officers in charge of tracking for stolen devices, lost phones, and stolen cars extort between 50,000 to 100,000 before accepting to track the stolen property. However, the force public relations officer, Commissioner of Police Frank Umba, has dismissed the allegations as swiftly stressing that officers and personnel of the force are not allowed to ask for Nigerian for payment before they provide services. Any such demand, he says, should be reported and disciplinary action will be taken. However, the Daily Trust investigation actually indicates 3 instances that incidents that the equipment used for tracking and locating bandits, terrorists, kidnappers, or other criminals has remained inactive for the past 7 months. Secondly, the same that is used for tracking phones which kidnappers use to contact and collect ransom are supposed to be subscribed to, but there's no subscription that has been paid since the start of 2021. In the interim, however, police persons are forced now to use the tracking facilities of sister agencies, the Department of State Services and the services of those belonging to the Office of the National Security Advisor. Therefore, the tendency is that you compromise your security when your tracking devices are not within your reach. And a police officer is reported to have said that if our tracking facilities are not working and you want your stolen car tracked, do you expect the policeman to use his own money to pay for the tracking? That is the dilemma.
Yeah, it's not a dilemma. It's not a dilemma. On Good Morning Nigeria, several months ago, this same issue was raised about non-subscription to the tracking devices and so on and so forth, about tracking devices being dormant, and then the police said that, oh, they have to rely on sister agencies. In the first instance, you are not supposed to operate as a silo. So if you rely on sister agencies, that is fine. Who is that officer or which department is responsible for renewing the subscription to the tracking devices? And why has it not been done? These are simple administrative issues.
Matters that we make make them look so complex as so there's a difficulty in getting them done. It's a simple routine things that you do, even your home when you exhaust your subscription. You just go back to, you can even do it by using phone to do it.
It is not, don't say your phone, Bayo. Let's the police. I said don't say the police officer or officers who are in charge of that unit or department that's supposed to renew the subscription. Would they say that They don't renew their subscription for cable TV if they have one or two. Will they say that when their credit goes low and their credit is exhausted on their phone, they will not recharge? So basic things, if you can do this for yourself, why can't you do it for your official function? And then how can you sit down? First of all, there was a time we had issues with CCTV cameras here in the Federal Capital Territory until they were all virtually accidented, that been destroyed and are no longer of any use. Over 10 years ago when they started, they said there was a control and command center, you could see everything, they even demonstrated on television. How can you deal with crime that is getting more sophisticated and yet you are operating virtually as it were in a stone age?
There are also about the fact that for you to face the world as it is today criminally, is so sophisticated. So you require sophisticated equipment and facilities to get that done.
The alibi is certainly not tenable.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, has directed the disciplinary action to be taken against an upper area court judge who issued a criminal summons outside the jurisdiction of his court. Justice Tanko Muhammad has directed the Chairman, Judicial Service Commission of the Federal Capital Territory to commence disciplinary action and report back to the Chief Justice in 21 days. The judge issued a criminal summons to an Abuja governorship candidate in the November 6 Anambra election to come and declare his assets. This was over a complaint that the gubernatorial candidate had abused his office between the year 2004 and 2009. Some banks in Niger State have threatened to shut down over the sealing up of their branches by the Niger State Internal Revenue Service. In a letter by the Niger State Bankers Committee in collaboration with the Central Bank branch Mina, the bank said that they will close all their branches in Niger State if the affected facilities are not unsealed. However, the Niger State Internal Revenue Services, whose chairman, Mohammed Isu, says that this is an unnecessary blackmail. He says that he advised the banks, especially those branches that were sealed, to pay their outstanding taxes and stop their blackmail. 6 out of the 8 banks were sealed and that were sealed had actually fulfilled part of their payment, and some of their activities have been unsealed. The banks are owing sums ranging between 8.2 million, and the highest of them is owing as much as 113.2 million. And these are taxes that are due to the Niger State Internal Revenue Services. And the banks include, you'll be surprised, first generation banks, second generation banks, and others.
Well, why would the banks be able to pay these taxes? Because usually at the end of the year, the banks will declare huge sums of money as profits made, billions of profits made. So why is it difficult for you to pay your taxes?
It's a pertinent question. While we are still on the bank issue, I'm sure that you have also been following the stories. The central bank at the weekend had to issue a statement denying that there were plans to convert all amounts to the credit of customers in their domiciliary accounts to Naira. Now, since the central bank took the drastic step of denying Forex to BDCs, you have 2 things have happened. One, you have seen the continuous story about the rate of Forex on the parallel market. Yes. 540 something Naira and so on and so forth. And now you are seeing this other story which is coming on that the CBN wants to convert all the monies in the domiciliary account into Naira. The CBN has denied that. Now, these are the works of the handiwork of mischief makers. But part of what the central bank should do is not sufficient to be issuing threats to say that commercial banks that do not oblige their customers who come for forex transactions and therefore engage in underhand business will be dealt with. The central bank should proceed, and set up undercover schemes to actually fish out those banks, because a number of customers are complaining. They say when they go to their banks, they encounter delays, and sometimes outright denial, and they say that no, we don't have forex for for this particular transaction. So the central bank should set up covert operations and fish out those institutions and then make us not to be issuing threats.
This is have been envisaged even at the point, that the central bank took this initial decision, to deny BDCs, access to forex. It's envisaged. So there should have been a monitoring mechanism put in place to monitor the commercial banks, because part of the blame, or rather complaint then, was that the commercial banks are now going to seize this opportunity to start doing some shoddy deals and what have you. And today it is manifesting that people are not getting this forex. Those who don't even need it now get it and sell it. So it has become a business in commercial banks.
Well, there is another alarm that has been raised that another coronavirus variant, B162, now dubbed as MU, is now giving the world a concern. The World Health Organization has said that this has been detected in Colombia since January, and the danger with this is that the MU variant has the ability to avoid vaccine-induced immunity. That is, it's not susceptible to vaccination. The danger is that World Health Organization has indicated that this is a matter of concern for it, because there has been an increase in transmission in COVID-19, and it has the ability, this MU, to evade vaccines. Presently, there are about 8 variants of the COVID-19 that is in the world. World Health Organization is monitoring 5 variants. These are known as Eta, Iota, Kappa, Lambda, and Mu. Already before that is in circulation, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. They use, I think, Greek alphabets to identify them.
Well, we'll just say that they are corona.
They are coronavirus. They are coronavirus.
Yes, but the danger here now is the mutations.
That's right. I agree. I mean, there's no.
The danger.
The humanity virtually lost last year. We are also virtually losing this year. And we can almost just project that this corona stuff probably will be around cumulatively for probably about 4 or 5 years before we can get on top of it.
4 or 5 years
it's too optimistic.
Yes, no, I mean it will be there for more. Now you're talking about B160, which is new, right?
No, MU.
Which of course you said is not sensitive to any vaccination. So now what's going to happen when that one gets across the world? Nobody prays for that, but then the possibility of it getting across the world is there.
The danger now is already in 39 countries.
That's it.
Well, if it doesn't,
America, Europe, and parts of USA.
If it doesn't, excuse me, if you can't handle that by vaccination, then rely on your personal immunity. Take a lot of sun, take your vitamin D from that, your vitamin C, eat well, exercise, and be strong. Because, let's face it, there are always pathogens in the air. And even simians, there's a story here, that gorillas at an Atlanta zoo in the US are being treated for COVID-19.
Of course.
So now, COVID-19 is now mutating from humans to
animals. To animals. Originally it came from animals, now it's going back to them. All right.
We're not sure whether COVID-19 came from animals.
Well,
Ebola, yes.
Well, COVID-19 has been said to have started in a market where animals are sold. Nobody has even clearly said, look, that it's a laboratory.
That's right.
All right, Bayo, I'd like to thank you for your analysis today. Hope to see you again tomorrow for more on Newspaper Review. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're taking a short break now. When we return, we shall be focusing our attention on the key issue for our conversation today, which is on pension management and related issues in Nigeria. All right, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And as a prompt for our conversation segment, which is on pension management and related issues in Nigeria, let's take this special report by Joseph Osen.
A scene of old, mostly sick and frustrated retirees on queue to process or assess retirement benefits was one thing many Nigerians do not cherish. Many times, it's a case of non-availability of funds to pay their aged citizens, resulting in huge pension liabilities. as the government struggled to pay backlog of pension arrears and gratuity. Most private organizations have no sustainable pension arrangement to cater for their employers when they leave active service. The pension scheme of pay-as-you-go defined benefits of the public sector as well as Provident Fund and the Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund for the private sector were inadequate to address the plight of the retirees. The Pension Reform Act 2004 was therefore enacted to fill identified gaps. The Contributory Pension Scheme has a percentage contribution of 18%, with employers contributing 10% and employees 8% out of their salaries to be saved to cater for the workers' needs after retirement. The system is to ensure that every person who worked in either the public service or the Federation, including private and the informal sector, receive his or her retirement benefits as and when due. So far, the scheme is reported to have grown its asset to 12.4 trillion naira in 2021 against 2.56 trillion naira pension deficit before the reform. Despite this phenomenal increase in 17 years of the contributory pension scheme, complaints continue to tree operators of the system. In fact, some state governments have refused to comply as they continue to operate the pay-as-you-go system. The federal and some state governments that have keyed into the scheme have also delayed transfer of accrued rights of workers to PENCOM for onward transfer to the various pension fund administrators, thus delaying immediate payment of workers' lump sum benefits after retirement. Many workers have little or no knowledge of their entitlements, how to compute their benefits, and how to assess them after retirement. For most, it takes up to 2 years to even smell their benefits. 17 years after reform, what can be done to improve the contributory pension scheme and pension management in Nigeria? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will share perspectives soon.
All right, we now have to introduce our guests for this conversation segment. And first, in our studio here in Abuja, we have Comrade Silva Mwiwu. Comrade Mwiwu is the chairman, Nigeria Union of Pensioners, Contributory Pension Scheme Sector. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. All right, we have another guest who is with us, joining us via Zoom from Lagos. He is Ivor Tako. Ivor Tako is the former National Treasurer of the NLC, the former board member of the Pension Commission, and also a consultant on pension matters. Ivor Tako, of course, is also a lawyer and has been our guest sometime in the past on Good Morning Nigeria. A pleasure to have you this morning on the program.
Thank you, and I appreciate your getting me on this occasion. Thank you.
Our Zoom connection to you is pretty clear at the moment, so might as well start the conversation with you. A number of retirees are still complaining about challenges that they have in accessing their pension. This is after retirement and after they have fulfilled all obligations. And the complaints are coming from both public sector retirees and private sector retirees. So the first question to ask is the contributory pension scheme working?
Thank you. Let me say that the contributory pension scheme is working. Because if we look at the defined benefit scheme which we left to the contributory pension scheme, you will the times when pensioners were camping around Abuja Hotel there in Abuja, that was only part of what was happening in the whole nation. People were there, they didn't know when they would collect their pension and how they were going to assess the pension. That's what brought on board the contributory pension scheme, the pension reform. The contributory pension scheme is working. However, there are hiccups in the working of the contributory pension scheme, and this has to do with, yes, there are issues with private sector, but the issues of the private sector are not that bad as it is with the public sector. The public sector, let me start with the public sector. The issue of the public sector had been that of the employer's compliance with the provision of the Act. The state governments, a lot of them have not keyed into the contributory pension scheme. And the unifying law that had to do with pension in the whole country was the Pension Act 1990. But the Pension Reform Act 2004 abrogated that law and left the states that had not brought up their own laws. They are left with no laws on contributory pension scheme or any pension scheme. And so the workers in those states are actually living in jeopardy, no work, no protection. And there are so many of them. Even those that have brought laws into place, they are not complying with their own laws. So it is a very big weak link in the contributory pension scheme. Coming to the federal sector, you know the federal government is the highest employer of labor in the country. The government is not only a government, it is an employer. And as an employer, the federal government is expected to comply with the provisions of the Pension Reform Act 2014. But until very recently, just about a month or two ago, the federal government had not been complying with the pension provisions of the Pension Reform Act 2014. And it became a very big burden to federal civil servants who were retiring. When you retire as a pensioner, there are three components of your RS that goes into your RSA account before you are able to be paid pension. The first component is the accrued rights. The accrued rights of people who were in service before the coming on board of the Pension Reform Act 2004. That is as at 30th June 2004. All those who were in service before that time have an accrued right. Accrued right is the right to pension they earn from the time they were employed up to the time of the coming into force of the Pension Reform Act 2004. And a lot of people who are retiring now, the greatest sum of their pension right is in the accrued right. The next component is the contribution of the employer and the employee that is paid directly into the RSA, retirement savings accounts of the employee. Then the last component is the return on investment of what is in the RSA. The PFAs invest these funds and then add it up to all the other two components and pay retirement benefit. Once the accrued right, where the greatest number of funds is, has not been redeemed, is difficult to pay pension. And that is the reason why you had pensioners going for 2 years, 1 year without receiving pension, federal pensioners. It was a great challenge to the contributory pension scheme. Unfortunately, PENCOM, that is the regulator of pensions in Nigeria, both private and public, their hands were tied, so to say. Tied because as an agency of government, the government did not give them. The government did not really give them the ability to regulate the industry. It was a moral weak link because the regulator, PENCOM, was doing everything to regulate and ensure compliance in the private sector, but the federal government was not complying. Therefore, turning a regulator, PENCOM, rather as a regulator, they became a beggar to go and be begging federal government, Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget Office, Office of Head of Civil Service. PENCOM became a beggar for people's right. But we want to thank God that by the grace of God and the will that the president has now shown in compliance 2 months ago, all these things are almost becoming a thing of the past. With the release of funds for accrued right, release of funds for the actual contribution of employers 10%, thereby making the employee 8% and bringing it to 18%. And all these issues, including the life insurance that they were supposed to take. Now, with all these things, I am happy to say that the contributory pension scheme, as it affects federal public servants, has really come on board because the government is now complying. So it is working. And I want to believe that the hiccups of the past may no longer be as it used to be. Let's hope that it will be the thing of the past, and that what the federal government is doing is not just a flash in the pan, it is actual compliance to the letters of the Pension Reform Act 2014. Let me state that it is working. It is working. Let me stop at this for more questions or any discussion on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that elaborate explanation. Actually, sort of from the fact that it's not working, and to the point where it is now working based on compliance by the federal government. We need also to know how much of this compliance can be found in the states of the federation, where we also have numerous Nigerian workers, both in the private and the public sectors. Now, one of our guests just joined us. He's in Lagos, in our Lagos studio. He's Charles Emolue. Charles Emolue is the Executive Director, Stanbic IBTC Pensions Limited. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's return to Abuja studio, where we have Comrade Silva Wiwu, Chairman, Nigerian Union of Pensioners Contributory Pension Scheme Sector. The first question put to first guest by Kingsley has to do with the issue of the functionality of the contributory pension scheme system. Now, you are a pensioner contributory union person, and you've listened to the first speaker, speak elaborately on this matter. What is your own view with respect to how this scheme is being operated presently?
Thanks so much. I think he has spoken as a consultant. And I want to say that his explanations are okay. But as a pensioner who wears the shoe and know where it pains, I will tell you that the contributory pension is working, but working with many lapses that started from the onset. It is a pensioner who actually experienced what I'm saying that can say how it is working. We give kudos to President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR. He had done fantastic job concerning contributory, in short, Nigerian pension industry generally. He had performed so well. Because we record that by the time he came into office, there were a backlog of pension liabilities, which he inherited. But gradually, he had put these things behind him, just like the last speaker has said. So we continue to appreciate him. But like I have said, the contributory pension scheme is a very good scheme. It's something that has brought succor both to government as the chief employer of labor and the employees, especially those in the public service. Like the last speaker has also said, it was because of the problems associated with the old system, the old scheme, that led to this. Now, what are those problems, those lapses that this scheme started with. The Pension Reform Act, which took effect from 25th of June 2004, provided that those who have more than 3 years to retire from service are the ones that will key into the new scheme. Now, assuming somebody has 4 years or had 4 years then to retire, that means you are putting 31 years already in the old system. Now, because government could not possibly pay off everybody, because it's assumed that every worker retired in 2004. Now it is now committed as bond, being managed by the central bank. As you retire, whatever is accrued to you, which we call accrued right, is now released to you. This accrued right we are talking about includes gratuity. And everybody knows what gratuity is. Gratuity is more or less a parting gift from the employer to the employee. And in the DBS, the old system, the defined benefit scheme, this gratuity is taken as lump sum before deciding your pension. But the scheme now has said both your gratuity and pension will now be handed over to the pension fund administrators. This is where the problem started. The money that should have become a parting gift, a lump sum on its own, this is one big mistake. And that's why there's so much pressure on what they call lump sum today. The law provides that every retiree collects not less than 50% of his last salary, his exit salary. But how many pensioners today collect even up to 25%? They are not up to 2 or 3%. That is as gratuity. No, I'm talking as pension now. You understand? This how pensioners under the contributory pension scheme have been shortchanged. So you see that we are forced into it. Now there was something that happened before the creation of states, if you can recall. Government needs wisdom gave waivers, transfer of service to those who want to work in their states, transfer their service from federal to their state governments. What did federal government do? If you are due for retirement, federal government begins to pay you for the number of years you served under it, while the state government continues to pay you for the service you have rendered to the state. This is what should have happened. That those people who are migrants from the old system to the new should be having 2 legs of pension. Having their pension paid by pittance up to the time of their retirement in 2004. Then whatever they have contributed in the new is what will be handled by the PFA. You get that? This is the problem. But now they have just mopped up everything, handed over to businessmen to manage. It's not assuming these areas were handled from the onset. No, okay. What is wrong now with the management of the lump sum?
Good. Because Ivor Taco was speaking a while ago, and they talked about the accrued rights, and then they contributed pension. They said, look, take everything, your rights have accrued, and then you have your contributory pension, give it to a PFA to manage, and then you draw your benefits instead of you, I'm not saying you in particular, instead of a pensioner having to come to queue up and be sleeping on the streets of Abuja and so on and so forth. If you are a federal employee, go to your PFA, the PFA will help you manage it. What is the issue with the PFAs managing the lump sum now?
The PFAs are working. I can tell you that. Apart from the things I have just mentioned, the PFAs are managing the funds very well. The plan is so tight,
safety of funds guaranteed. You understand? And like he has said, there are returns on investment, which we witness. For instance, I retired about 5 years ago. But the last time I checked my RSA balance, I can still see that my balance there is about the same balance 5 years ago. Meaning that I'm drawing my pension from the returns on investment. The PFAs are working. But all this shortchanging of those of us who migrated from the old system is where we are having this problem today. For instance, he had made mention of 2.5%, which is the differential from what government ought to have been paying since 2014, 1st of July. Okay? Now, this money has been released. But what PENCON is telling us now is that the pensioners cannot enjoy it as arrears en bloc. It will now be spread, left in the hand of the PFS to invest again. There are people who have died between 2014 and now that cannot enjoy this money anymore. Those who are alive, why not give them the privilege of enjoying this money en bloc? The money we are talking about, some we collect like 20,000, 30,000, and you spread this money over 10 years. What is the significance of that? These are the issues we are having.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Silva Unwewu, Chairman of the Pensioners Contributory Pension Scheme sector. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's go over now to our Lagos Network studios, where we earlier introduced Charles Emelwe, Executive Director of Operations of Stanbic IBTC Pensions. Mr. Emelwe, delight to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria. But while we're still just exploring the outlines of the contributory pension scheme and the issues around it, tell us, as a PFA, what the issues are with pension administration. I mean, there appears to be a focus on the public sector, which is understandable, but you also have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of retirees from the private sector. So you're dealing with both the public sector and the private sector. What are the issues peculiar to each set of retirees?
Very much for the question. Maybe before I answer that question, there's a little clarification that I want to make to the comment made by my comrade. And that talks to the percentage of people that are able to access 25% minimum of their pension as lump sum. The law requires that pensioners are able to access a minimum of 25%. There are quite some number of conditions associated with that, between 25% and 50%. And it's determined by the balance that you have in your account, your RSA, and as well as what your last monthly salary was. Now, it is on record that every pensioner is able to access a minimum of 25% as lump sum. However, if the balance in your account is below 550,000, below 550,000, you are given the entire sum as en bloc. So you are not migrated to the program withdrawal. Now, to the question on what are the challenges, so about 90% of pensioners, if not more than, are able to access their fund, seamlessly. However, the challenges we've seen, one of the most critical, is with the inconsistency of data that clients supply us. So you have instances where somebody retires and is expected to have retired at the age of 60. What is on the database what's on the database is not consistent with the age he has given to his employers. That means he has to do some documentations in order to be able to align his records. So we've got instances of wrong data, inconsistent data, and these things are even becoming more pronounced because PENCOM in order to address these shortcomings, I'd come up with an enhanced platform that expects every retiree or RSA holder to have his record aligned with what is on the national identification number. That's where these issues are coming up. We've also had instances where somebody purportedly, or some persons purportedly are working with wrong credentials that don't belong to them. These are some of the issues that we face. And there are also quite a number of people that are retirees, disease retirees. That category of clients, clients also have issues. Some of them have issues accessing their phone, in a timely manner. And the primary reason that we've realized for this is because of their inability, for instance, to establish a will before they die. So when they die interstate, they are expected to get a letter of administration. In such instances, we have issues like family internal wranglings, and until that is resolved, the monies cannot be processed. These are some of the major issues that we see at the back end, aside from what has been articulated by the other two speakers. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Charles Milo, Director of Stanbic IBTC Pensions. Now, let's return to Barrister Ivor Tackle. So I hope you listened to Comrade Silva. He actually, told your line with respect to commending the contributory pension scheme so far, and again, what the current administration has been able to do to ensure that some persons who retired a few years ago have access to their benefits now. But he also raised the issue concerning the migrants from the old system to the new system. If you can recall all he said, did he make any good point there? If it is a reality that those who migrated are being shortchanged based on the contributory pension system, what do you think can be done to remedy the situation and see how government can ensure that those migrants are properly taken care of? Okay, he got else at this moment. All right, really, I was making reference to the contribution of Comrade Silva Mwiu, who itemized the fact that yes, government has also done well, as you also pointed out in your first contribution, that government has done so well to ensure that pensioners' contributory pension is operationally working well. But he also talks about the issue concerning the migrants from the old system to the new system, whom he said such persons are being shortchanged based on the contributory pension scheme system. Right? He is asking a big question, which has to do with the fact that how will these migrants from the old to the new system be properly taken care of in the new system?
It's raining here heavily. It's raining where I am heavily, so I cannot even hear you well. I wish I can get that question again.
I hope you've been watching the program and that you listened to Comrade Mwiu when he raised the issue concerning the fact that those Nigerian workers who migrated from the old to the new system are being shortchanged. That's not his question. Let me not take it further so you can get it easily. That's the question. Those migrating from the old to the new system of pension scheme are being shortchanged at the moment.
Let me say that may not be totally the case. I, for instance, I also work for the Federal Public Service, and I retired under the contributory pension scheme. So I came from the defined benefit scheme to the contributory pension scheme. On retirement, we are enrolled we are giving retirement bonds, those enrollment. I understand what he's saying. In the defined benefit scheme, there was what they call gratuity and then pension. I think I heard him before the network break. I heard him saying that. But the truth is that those two are merged in one now. In calculating, in the actuarial calculation of the pension rights of those in the old scheme, all those components were taken into consideration in the calculation. And so when the accrued rights is being put into the RSA, being redeemed on retirement, all those two components of formal gratuity, as they call it, and the pension itself, they are merged and then put into the retirement savings account. It is at the point of collection, even at the point of collection, in the contributory pension scheme, there is what is called lump sum. Lump sum is collected. When the lump sum is collected, just the way gratuity was collected in the past, when the lump sum is collected, that's when the retiree will now decide whether he's going for program withdrawal or annuity. But before this is done, that lump sum has already been collected. And the calculation of lump sum is not a table matter. Calculated on life expectancy. It's calculated based on life. It's actually calculated. It may not be as high as those who retired in the past will collect, but they are sure on those on program withdrawal, once you collect the lump sum, the money, the balance in your RSA account continues vested because it is your money, and the retiree continues to collect pension from it, and the balance there, in the event of the demise of the pensioner, the balance goes to the estate of the retiree. The balance goes there. So I know it is not no retirees are not being changed.
Ivor Taco, assuming that we can see that your screen is freezing, one thing to suggest, if you have an earpiece, once we leave you, then of course you can get the earpiece back on. But I just wanted to ask you, because apparently those whose case we are discussing now are one, private sector employees who have become retirees and now their pension is being managed by PFA, public sector workers who have become retirees and their pension is of course being managed by PFA's public sector, in this case being federal public sector workers, plus state workers who have become retirees and whose states have also enacted their contributory pension laws. And we know that there are only very few of those states. Now, tell us, what options are open to current workers in states that have not enacted their pension laws, whether they are working in the public sector of the state or whether they are working in local governments of the state?
With you, I plead with you, it's raining here heavily. Let me relocate out of my current place to a place where it may be better for me to pick. Please, I plead with you.
That's fine. Ivor, thank you very much. We'll give you some time to sort that out. We know that you can have atmospheric interference sometimes with communication. But I want to go back to Charles Emile, who is in our Lagos studios on Victoria Island, and Executive Director of Operations of Stanbic IBTC. Mr. Emile, now you say that it appears, not appears, that the pension arrangement is seamless for private sector retirees and then public sector retirees who have overcome some of those challenges that you mentioned. But just give us a walkthrough of what a retiree needs to do, because we understand that some retirees are sometimes in the dark as to pursue their rights upon retirement. What does a retiree need to do? At what age should he begin to pursue this, whether it's in the public sector or in the private sector?
Thank you once more. For a retiree, depending on whether it's a federal government, a government employee or a private sector employee, we've realized over time that there's that knowledge gap, and we've tried to bridge it in the industry by organizing seminars for them to be able to know what is required of them, so that they don't wait till when they retire. Included in the seminars oftentimes are people that will retire even in 10 years, 15 years from the date of the seminars, and this is done on a yearly basis. Now, what is required for a private sector staff? You will need to have in place your letter of retirement, your last pay slip, the last 3 months of your to the date of your retirement must also be handy. You must have done what we call the data recapture, and the data recapture is also to enable us address the inconsistency in data. That must be done. The data recapture, we've been on it as an industry for almost almost 2 years, and we've not recorded significant compliance on that. Even as an industry, we had to now get vendors in place through our regulator, SPENCOM, to help us go to the places, locations of operations of our clients to register them, so that we can reduce the inconvenience. So that must be done, is important. Then you must sign a letter, an application letter, a white passport photograph, a passport photograph on a white background must be submitted as well. Now, when you bring all this to us, we will do the computation for you, depending on which option you want to go with, whether a program withdrawal or annuity. We will do the computation based on established schedules, which the last speaker spoke to. And you are expected to review where you are paid either the 25%, between 25% and 50% as lump sum. And then you are given, if it's a program withdrawal, what that will result to. However, for clients that nominate to go for annuity, they must have executed a contract with the insurance company, and that contract must be brought to us. The contract must be signed and sealed by the insurance company. That's what makes it valid. Now, for federal government employees, all these also apply, except for the fact that they must also partake in the verification exercise that is done, and that is done yearly. Unfortunately, for the past 2 years, PECON used to be responsible, saddled with that responsibility, but they've now moved it over to us, and they couldn't do it because of COVID-19 concerns, just to make sure that everybody is safe. So they moved it to the PFAs, and it's currently ongoing. What we've realized also is that there seems to be some apathy to it. Most people that are qualified for this are not showing up. There have been advertisement campaigns on social media, even on the media, on the traditional media as well, just to make sure that people are aware and they go and do the pre-verification. The pre-verification is what qualifies you to be able to now, approach your PFA to assess your benefits. Now, the pre-verification, for you to qualify for it, you must have done certain things online before you approach your PFA. And mind you, there are 6 mandatory documents and 14 conditionally mandatory documents for federal government parastatals. And the mandatory documents, amongst other things, is what I explained. You must have your pay slip, you must have your letter of retirement, you must have you must have done your DRE, your data recapture exercise, and every other thing. Now, the mandatory documents does not apply to everybody. The conditionally mandatory documents does not apply to everybody. So we have instances where certain persons, where they moved within from one agency to another agency. You need to have the document that supports the movement. because the record might be different from what we have in our database. So that record, for instance, must be shown. If you were promoted within the period also, you must also bring the promotion letter. So once these documents, and the PFAs have also hosted these requirements on their website. If you visit their website, you will see it there. We've also tried to do what we preempt the questions that will come from the retirees. We have the Q&A, the question and answers section that we've posted on our website, just to enable the retirees, have access to this. We've also gone to the extent of even having employers forum, where we try to talk to the employers so that they can handhold their staff in the process that are qualified for retirement, so that they can handhold them. So we have those employers forum every year in the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. The PFAs have done so much to make sure that this experience is seamless. I think, thank you. I'll stop at that.
Okay. Yes.
If it's okay, but otherwise, I just want to carry out if Ivor Taco is back. I saw him a moment ago.
Yes, they say he's back.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to put back the person.
Yeah. Let's just take advantage of his reappearance. Ivor Taco, if you can hear us, the director punched you on the screen a while ago. I was asking about. Let me just recast it. I said what we are discussing now are those retirees in the private sector who have contributed to their own pension, and then more importantly, federal sector retirees and the retirees from state governments that have enacted their contributory pension laws. What options are open to current employees in states or retirees in states that have not enacted their pension laws? Now, if these employees or these retirees, if they are for the state, that's one leg. Second leg would be if they are local government employees or retirees, what options are open to them?
You see, it's extremely very unfortunate for those states that I personally call the pension red states. These are states that have not enacted any law on pensions. So the employees are actually living in jeopardy, working in jeopardy with no protection for their destitution. They are the state governments, both current governors and past governors. Some of them have been collecting their entitlements, collecting their allowances, collecting all types of benefits, and they leave these workers who held the states before they became governors. They held the states for them to come, and they will leave those and no protection for the future of these workers. Unfortunately, they are talking about true federalism, and that is where we find federalism. They don't want to key into the Pension Reform Act as it is. They say there is true federalism, they must make their own laws, and yet they've not made their own laws. What then remains? I think the only option is for the workers of those states to ensure through all legal means available to them and their unions to ensure that those state governments bring out laws to protect their pension rights, because this is covered by ILO Convention, minimum provisions for social security for workers. And Nigeria is a signatory to this convention. And the federal government is complying, the private sector is complying. Some of these state governments are not doing anything to this effect. And this is something, an international convention that they must comply, yet they are not doing. So the only option for the workers and their unions to take all legitimate legal actions to enforce state governments to ensure that they put laws in place. There are other state governments that are put in place and with their. It is a moral on this government. Very on.
All right. Well, we seem to be having, glitches, with that Zoom connection. But of course, we have had most of what he had to contribute for that question put to him by Kinsley. We are back to Abuja here one more time, and I want to bring in again Silva Muiwu, the chairman of Nigeria Union of Pensioners Contributory Pension Scheme Sector. I think the question put to Ivor is very, very important, because that has to do with individuals who are working in various states, in very many states, that have not enacted any pension law. From what we know, it's just about 8 states that have been able to enact this law. So the majority of the states in this federation have not really done that. To you, who is a comrade and who is also monitoring the workability of the new pension scheme in question, what will be the fate of those persons? And coming from the angle of being a union person, what would they do? Of course, the IVO has said that the unions should intensify efforts towards ensuring that the state government adheres to what the rule says, what the ILO says, and what have you. So, what form of, what method could these workers use or unions apply to get the states to get these laws enacted?
Yeah. I think federal government has given the state free hand. They really don't want to interfere. That is the problem we're having. If it had been made compulsory or mandatory for the states, it's a different thing. Then those who are already into the system, for instance, we have a case of Osun State. They came to me not quite long ago, where their former governor could not remit their contributions amounting to several billions. Those retirees, they have not been paid for about 5 years. After retirement, Osun has keyed into the contributory pension and is having that problem. Now, what encouragement is there for other states that have not keyed into it, that they should now mandate their state government to go into it, especially if their pensions are being paid, like in the old system, and they are drawing their pensions. So if it is okay for them, why enforce any law to do otherwise? Government says we should have a uniform system of pension. It is the duty of government to make it mandatory, but because government cannot decide what any state can pay, this is where the problem is. It's similar to the matter of minimum wage. They allow the states to decide. It's not the federal government that pays. So that's why it is so for now.
Okay. Thank you, comrade. One point that I would also like us to clarify, both Ivor and Charles Emilwe, but the question first is going to Charles Emilwe of IBTC. Look, the wordings of the Pension Act or Pension Reform Act as amended would tend to give the impression that we are dealing only with employers and employees. They say employer contribution. Now it's 10% from your employer and employee 8%. But we do know that there are also what we call independent contractors. If you are, say, in the public service, there's nothing that stops you from exiting after 10 years, after 15 years, if you don't want to spend 35 years. You are not in servitude. The same thing in the private sector. So if you've been employed, let's say now since 2004, you were employed in the public service or in the private sector, and then of course you were enrolled in the contributory pension scheme
your employer was paying, you were also paying your counterpart, and this year is 2021. That's like 17 years. You say, federal government, thank you very much, I want to exit. I don't know how many years they used to qualify for retirement. I want to resign or otherwise to go and do other things. I want to be an independent contractor. What happens to your pension? With a pension freeze, can you, from your earnings as an independent contractor, continue to make your own contribution?
Thank you. So we've got in every RSA account, we've got the mandatory, which is the 10% and the 8% that is expected to be contributed by the employer and the employee respectively. We've also got the voluntary contribution that could be made. Voluntary contributions are made by the individuals. However, the law presupposes that you must be in a gainful employment. Now, when you resign, you are allowed to retire from the age of 50, even though the mandatory for certain organizations is 60. But as I work in the private sector and I want to retire at the age of 50, I could be allowed to apply, and I would assess the benefit, both the lump sum and the program withdrawal. The same thing applies to federal government. So you mentioned the 10 years minimum work years that you can put into a service. Now, once you retire or when you resign and you don't meet up to this criteria, if you have been without any gainful employment for 4 months, you are permitted to assess 25% of whatever you've contributed into your RSA. That 25%, you are permitted to assess it. So that's what happens. However, if you are now gainfully employed, you could continue the contribution from wherever you stopped. So that's what the law permits presently today.
Mr. Medway, thank you very much. There is a legal aspect to my question, which you haven't quite addressed, because even in your explanation, the accent you have given is on employment. And I'm saying, must that be a formal employer? You can be self-employed. That means you are an independent contractor. If you retired, or you resigned from the organization at the age of 45 or at the age of 40, and you become an independent, you now employ yourself, you're an independent contractor, what is open to you by way of voluntary contribution? Must you be employed by somebody or by an institution or organization?
Thank you. Sorry, I skipped that. So if you are self-employed, you have your own business, even though the law, before I go there, the law permits that you must have a certain number of employees to be mandatorily on the CPS, on the Contributory Pension Scheme. However, we've had instances where we don't have that number of employees in an organization, and they have decided voluntarily to identify with that process. The only thing the law expects is that you cannot fund the accounts, the RSA, from your own personal account. So if you have an organization, a business that you are running, you are permitted, if you are the only person that is on that in that company, and you have an RSA that is duly registered. Now, before an organization is permitted to remit into their employees' account, whether they are 2 or 3, that employer must have been pre-approved by PENCOM, and certain documentations needs to be fulfilled. So we've had organizations that are 3 people, and they've passed that process, and they are able to contribute into their RSA accounts today. So nothing stops. And moreover, to address this shortcoming, because PENCOM realized that we have not been able to capture a lot of people in the informal sector, and that's what birthed the micro-pension scheme, to allow certain organizations that can't even get the pre-approval because they can't meet some of the conditions, to be able to, on their own, fund from their personal accounts, their micro-pension account. It's also an RSA account. it is savings towards the retirement of that person. So the micro pension to address some of these shortcomings and for people that want to identify with this program was birth. Today, the uptake on micro pension is still not significant, even though a lot of efforts have gone into making sure that people are educated and enlightened on what options are left for them and are open to them. Thank you.
Yes, this issue of educating and enlightening people is very important because occasionally there are many documentations to go through, the
many agencies
to deal with complexities and what have you. These are some of the issues that make it difficult for even Nigerians to understand the concept and the approach being put in place by government to ensure that workers who have retired get their full benefits and of course get their pensions running. Well, we thank you all for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation continues. You're welcome back. It is understandable the fact that PENCOM is a key agency when it comes to the issue of pension management in Nigeria. And we made frantic efforts to invite PENCOM officials to this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria so that issues arising from their own part of the bargain in terms of performance would have laid open by them for better understanding by Nigerians. So we actually invited PENCOM, but no person came here to represent the organization. All right. Stephen, salary increase in Nigeria in 2019, and some retirees would have expected that their pensions would have also been adjusted in that connection, so that pensioners will also be part of increase in what they take home. I don't know whether that is permissible based on the contributory pension system scheme. If it is, why is it not yet effected?
It's permissible. It's there in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, Section 173, subsection 3. And if you come to the Pension Reform Act, you see it in the Pension Reform Act, Section 39, subsection 3, 2. So with this combined force of the Constitution of the Federation and the PRA, Pension Reform Act, pensioners under the contributory scheme are entitled to pension reviews arising from probably salary increases, or to be reviewed after 5 years as the Constitution had provided. But why is it that we are not assessing it? Those under the old system, DBS, the Defined Benefit Scheme, are enjoying the reviews, the increases of pension. Now we had an increase in 2007, 15%. There was another one in 2010, amounting to 33%. Presently, we have the consequential adjustments arising from the national minimum wage. And that as we speak today, most pensioners under the old system have benefited from it. Now we are beginning to see what is the problem, to ask what the problem is. If you go to the Pension Reform Act, Section 18, A to C will tell you the objects of the commission, that is PENCOM. Now you go to Section 23 through 24, will give you the functions of PENCOM. And I tell you that all these functions and objects of the commission, you will not find where PENCOM is to take care of retirees under the CPS. The function of PENCOM basically is structural administration, coordination of the system, enforcement of laws. PENCOM reports directly to the president. Now, they created what is called PTAD, the Pension Transitional Arrangements Department. It is transitional because it is expected that one day, when the last person under the old system is no more, what we now have is CPS. You go to section 45 of the PRA, you will see the functions of PETAI, well spelled out. Now, what PENCOM will tell us is that they cater for retirees under the CPS. So what PENCOM will do is prepare a budget and say, okay, 20 billion, 40 billion can take care of all those areas. Advise the GMO, the Debt Management Office, and the ends there. But what PETAD will do is to prepare this, send to Ministry of Finance, because it's an extra-ministerial department under Ministry of Finance, through the Accountant General, and they are paid. Nobody does that for those under
Contributory.
And I am suggesting that what government ought to do, we are already victims, but not minding the list of all retirees from 2007, when retirees began to emerge under the new system, till date, the data of retirees should be taken to PETAI. That is the only way they can have access to all these increases. Because that is the duty of PETAI to do. PENCOM is not doing that.
Yeah, Comrade Silva, we will thank you very much, but I would like Ivor Taco to also pitch in on this issue, because it's one point that we have heard repeatedly, and happily my colleague Kieran has raised that. The whole idea of benchmarking pension benefits against inflation and, more importantly, minimum wage increases. Under the defined benefit scheme, one could understand that. But if it's the CPS, that's the Contributory Pension Scheme, where are you going to get the resources from to benchmark against inflation and minimum wage increases? You made your contribution, your employer made a contribution, now you are retired, you want your employer to still come back while you're already retirement to be making contributions to you. What will be the source of that funding? But in the meantime, first tell us what the legal arrangement is.
Thank you. The point, like what my brother comrade has said, the Constitution provides for increase in pension whenever there is a review in salaries. And when there is no review in salaries, every 5 years. That's a provision of the Constitution. And then the Contributory Pension Scheme provides for enhancement of pension for the pensioners under CPS. However, enhancement is based on the balance in the RSA account of the pensioner. The money in the RSA account of the pensioner is invested, and the return of investment added to what is in the RSA and is being used continuously to pay pension. And it is from that balance that enhancement of pension comes in. Unfortunately, the constitutional provision, the point is that these workers, these people, these retirees under the CPS are also retirees of the federal government. I want to go deeply into pension issues in terms of, because there are two types of pension. The pensions under the contributory pension and the pension that comes based on needs. And that is funded through taxation and other things. So the government can still do, and the government can still do an enhancement on the contributory pension scheme once there is a will. The government will do that. Yes, we cannot just limit ourselves to the point that what is in the retirement savings account of the contributor is what is used for enhancement. This pensioner is also a pensioner of the federal government. And so the welfare of that pensioner should still be the interest of the federal government. And the federal government also has a role to ensure that this pensioner lives out of a destitution, lives well up to retirement. We have talked about the constitutional provision. The enhancement has to be there, but that constitutional provision has to be taken by the federal government the way the pensioners in the defined benefit schemes are also taken. In the effect, those people had already left the service, but the government is still enhancing their pension based on constitutional provision. So constitutionally, the government, as the former employer of the current pensioners under the contributory pension scheme, still has a role in the enhancement of the pension of the pensioners under the contributory pension scheme. The only thing I want to talk when my comrade talked is about transferring the pensioners under the CPS to PITAD. That is not so. He had earlier said that the pensioners under defined benefit pension, PITAD is a transitional, and he clearly said so. At the death of the last pensioner under the old defined benefit scheme, PITAD will just automatically fold up. It has nothing to, provision has been made. We cannot look at the temporary setback and begin to look at how to change goalposts. But government has a duty under the Constitution to enhance pensions of pensioners under the contributory pension scheme. Thank you.
It's just, what's his name, Charles.
Charles, yeah.
We actually run out of time, but Charles, I mean, you've spoken so well in the past, and it does appear that there are no issues, when it comes to pension management of the PFAs and what have you. But I still have, people still have some concerns about the management of some PFAs. I'm not talking about IBTC Pensions Limited, but perhaps others. Could you, if you have an idea of what has been the complaint of some Nigerians who are under this contributory pension scheme, whom some of them even said that they were asked to come for verifications and what have you, and for months now they have not been verified. Some say, look, they will be posted to go to different offices of different branches, yet they have not been able to be verified. If such a thing exists, why should that be?
And Charles, please, I would like you to take this along with that question. One of the complaints we also hear is that some employers do not remit their contribution and the employee's contribution to the PFA.
Thank you. So I'll take the first question. So when we talk about verification, and as we said, the verification tends to apply to government employees. Now, because of COVID-19, the complaint might be related to the last 3 years or 2 years because of COVID-19 concerns. Before today, PENCOM used to be saddled with that responsibility of conducting that exercise. But by last year, they started a process which has now been bettered of transferring that responsibility to the PFAs so that people can go to their PFA, any branch of their location, rather than gathering in specific locations. They can go to their PFA and do the pre-retirement verification. A system was developed for that to make it as seamlessly possible as seamless as possible. Now, so those complaints might have originated before today, but the issue has been addressed significantly by the way the process has been decentralized, and people can now make up their mind in which of the locations they want to conduct. They want this verification to be conducted. Then the second issue in terms of, can I remember the question now? In terms of, can you remind me the question? Sorry, I think
non-remittance of contribution by the employer and the employee by the employer. That's just as you hear stories about pay as you earn, not being remitted to the tax authorities. The same way some employers will make their deductions from the employee and along with theirs and then keep holding on to the money.
This is a challenge we face as an industry, and we cannot run away from that. If you look at the funding ratio, PENCOM has been very transparent in terms of this. It's not hidden. As an industry, we probably have like 40% funding ratio. That presupposes that quite a number of employers are not remitting the funds. To address this, the Pension Reform Act was made provision for the creation of recovery agents. Now, the responsibility of these recovery agents is to identify those employers that have failed to make the necessary remittances, go to their locations, audit them, and establish their liability. And there's always a fine, associated with this, a penalty associated with this. The recovery agents have been very effective, yet more still needs to be done. But also, PENCOM encourages employees that feel that they have been shortchanged to complain, and those complaints are handled in such a manner that the identity of the complainants are not revealed, and that vehicle has actually been very effective. But still more needs to be done, really, as an industry, and I think we can only get better at that. Thank you.
All right, Kingsley, we're about to wrap up the show. Gentlemen, we thank you indeed for being here this morning and making very, very incisive contributions to this conversation. First of all, Silva Mwiwu Comrade, Chairman, Nigerian Pensioners Contributory Pension Scheme Sector. We thank you for coming. And from Lagos, we had Charles Emelwe, Executive Director, Stanbic IBTC Pensions Limited. It's been nice talking to you this morning on this platform. And via Zoom from Lagos, Barrister Ivor Tackle, former National Treasurer, NLC, former Board Member, Pension Commission, and also a consultant on pension matters. We thank you for being part of our show this morning. Next, sports.